Discovering Junction Creek. Polluted Waters. A Junction Creek Stewardship Committee production.
In this video, we are going to be learning about Junction Creek, the issue of plastic waste, and how our impact can impact the watershed that we live in. Welcome to the Junction Creek watershed. A watershed is an area of land where all the surface water from around the area ends up draining into the same place, whether that is a creek, a river, or a lake. In our watershed here in central Greater Sudbury, that common water body is Junction Creek. As you can see, everybody in Greater Sudbury lives in some kind of watershed, and everything in the watershed is connected. That means that we have an impact on the watershed and everything around the watershed. And those impacts affect others who are also in the same watershed. Watersheds play an important role in the community and the environment. They provide habitat for wildlife, places for recreation like fishing, and they also provide natural functions such as flood management, water quality, and carbon storage. Watersheds are incredibly important for maintaining a healthy food web. Everything that we can find in a watershed is amazing. From the smallest species like aquatic insects, found at the bottom of the creek, to the biggest of animals like moose. The watershed is a home to many interspecies connections. Some of the connections you may know in a watershed may include waterfowl, fish, and reptiles eating insects and plants, then the mammals and birds of prey eating waterfowl, fish, and the reptiles, and then mammals being eaten by other mammals. But what about the connections in the soil? Soil helps circulate nutrients and minerals through the food web by using plants. Microbes, which are tiny living things such as fungi, algae, bacteria, and viruses that are not visible to the naked eye, and earthworms, live in the soil and break down organic matter, such as dead plants or items you might find in your compost, turning them into healthy food for plants. So healthy soil means the proper breakdown of waste back into the environment, which means healthy plants. And guess who ends up eating the plants? Everything in the food web is connected, right? This is how energy is cycled back into the food web. So what about plastic waste then? How does it break down and fit into the watershed's food web? Microbes cannot fully break down plastic waste as readily as they can organic material, like plant or animal waste. Plastics are made of strong, man-made materials. While organic matter decomposes back into the environment, plastics just keep breaking down and down into smaller and smaller pieces, and eventually end up becoming microplastics. So anything smaller than 5 millimeters is considered a microplastic. These microplastics can end up being in the environment after 10 years, 20 years, 450 years. Some plastics also leak toxic chemicals into the water and soil. These plastics enter the food web when eaten or absorbed by animals, which impacts the entire food web, creating a big issue for the health of our watershed. Studies have found that in Junction Creek and in Ramsey Lake, fish have been found to have microplastics in their stomachs as well. This is why we need your help to keep our watershed healthy and clean. So how is plastic entering Junction Creek and other bodies of water? Littering is one way plastic is entering the waterway, but sometimes that happens by accident. Plastic waste that falls out of recycling bins and garbage cans ends up on the street and then gets pushed into the creek by wind and rain events. So strong winds, strong rains. What we can do to help stop plastic from entering the waterways is stuff like this. Number 1, refuse. Say no to single-use plastics. Those are plastics that are only used once and then people end up throwing them away because they can't use them again. Things like forks, knives, spoons, anything you find in takeout is a single-use plastic. Make sure you say no to those plastics when you go out for takeout or out to a restaurant. Bring along a kit of reusable items like metal forks, metal spoons, reusable mugs. Reduce. Find alternatives to the plastics that you find at home. Can you replace a plastic water bottle with an aluminum water bottle? Can you purchase or make a reusable bag so that you can take it with you to school or to the grocery store or anywhere really? Which comes to reuse. If you do have to use something single use, try and make sure that you use it over and over again. Plastic utensils can be washed, and plastic water bottles can be used to make bird feeders, for example. Sometimes you can use plastic waste from around your house to make fun crafts. So I use mine to collect money in so I can buy something special for myself after the year is over. Recycle. Some plastics can be recycled. Look out for these symbols to make sure that you know which kind of plastics can be recycled in your neighborhood. Make sure your waste and recycling are kept secure from wind and storms so that they don't end up in the creek like all this plastic did. Clean up, pick up after yourself. Make sure that your plastic waste is secure until you know you can throw it out properly. Try and organize or participate in a community cleanup with your friends and family. Participate in a plastic-free challenge. Make a poster to see if you can reduce your plastic waste and actually see how you're making an impact on the creek. Finally, check out our videos and our educational material online on our website, on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and learn more about plastics in your environment. Help spread the word. Together we can help enjoy the nature that we all live in and be a part of a greater community that protects the waterway. In this video, we learned about the Junction Creek watershed, why it's important to the community, and how plastic waste can actually impact the soil, the plants, the animals, and the overall environment of the watershed. We also learned why this happens and how we can help minimize the impact of plastic waste in our waterway. Now that you know all this really cool information about how you can make a difference, you are creek stewards, people who can help out the creek. I hope you enjoyed this video and keep learning about your creek in your community.